Okay, welcome everybody to the 4 p.m. joint work session of the City Council, also acting as the RDA, for June 18th, 2024. We have all council members present with the exception of Councilmember Blair and Vice Chair White. I know Vice Chair White was tied up in some traffic and should be on our way shortly. Hopefully, I haven't heard from Councilmember Blair. Anybody think he should be here as well? Couple of calendar things. We have a ribbon cutting / unveiling of the full-size Damian Lillard horse coming up. And just kind of coordinating those. I think there's a few dates that are out there that we've looked at here. I'm trying to see. I don't know if we narrowed it down. The 8th. So July 8th at 4 o'clock, which is a Monday. And who knows? Maybe Damien will show up. We don't know that for sure, but hopefully it's a joint effort between Ogden City and Weber State. So this horse, we saw from some of the presentations, some of the vandalism on some of the horses, and so based on the artwork and the amount on that, the plan is to have it in front of the downtown Weber State store on casters, and in the evening it'll be rolled inside and protected, so that during the day it'll be out on the sidewalk, and it's good to see all the horses out there coming out, this is the time of year for that, and so that'll be neat to see. So July 8th, if you want to mark your calendars, it'd be great to have as many council members there as we can as well. 4 p.m. Yeah, on the 8th. Down at the Weber State downtown. Yep. I think it will be, yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other housekeeping or calendar items that Janine, you mentioned the tours of the construction?
Yeah, so we have those scheduled for next Tuesday at 4. We're going to meet here. We'll have bands here, so you can all go together. They'll have hard hats and vests for you. Some of the directors will probably be joining you, so that would be good. On the Saturday, this Saturday, June 22nd, is my hometown service day. If anybody's interested in participating with that, you can check out their website. And then one just other item I wanted to touch on, we met as an audit committee this week, and one of the things that the state auditor has asked, one of the questions they ask on their audit assessment is whether or not all of the council members had fraud risk training. And you have to do it once every 4 years. And they have a link on their website. It's online training. I haven't taken it yet, but I will. So I don't have no idea how long it would take for you to do it. If you can, it'd be nice if you could get it done by the end of June, but if not, we'll just shoot for trying to get it done for next year. You have to do it once every term, once of your term. So once you do it, you don't have to do it again until you're reelected.
Was it in our email you
said? It's not there. Was it? I can't remember.
No, I'm just trying. I thought that I had done it before, and I thought we did it.
Really? Okay. We'll double check and see if we can find some record of that. But it says all council members have to do it, so it's sort of all or nothing. Yeah. So we'll check.
Yeah, if we can maybe get that emailed out, the link, and that way everyone can take a look at it, and then just once you've completed, if possible in June, send a reply back that you've got it done, and or if you've done it
an extra time if you accidentally can't remember.
That's right. Yeah.
Just be extra compliance.
Should be fun.
And I used to have on the calendar the employee picnic on Thursday. Is that still happening? Awesome. Okay.
You should have got your notice of when you serve. If you signed up, you should have got that today.
I don't think I signed up. They usually show up. Do we have to sign up?
If you signed up, then they'll give you a time. So
yeah,
I'll just be extra.
Okay. All right. I think the chamber has a board of governors meeting that conflicts with that, but same time lots of things going on this time of year. Let's start out with a quick review of our agenda. At 6 p.m. we have our special redevelopment agency meeting where we have some minutes, board member hire to approve those or to review those. And then we'll have our public hearing on the proposed 2023-2024 budget amendment year-end adjustments. And then that's the bulk of that meeting. Then we have after that our city council meeting where we have some additional minutes. Councilmember Graff, Blair, and Myers. You have your review list there, and then a number of public hearings, which will the first. So if I remember right here, the first 4 will open and close those public hearings with each item, or 3. Those 3. So we've got the 2023-24 budget amendment year-end adjustments, the enterprise funds transfer, and the capital improvement plan. And those will all be treated as separate public hearings. And then the fourth one is the let's see, I guess that's not a public hearing, is it? Is that right? Or is that
the budget is the tentative budget? Those are all public hearings.
Okay,
but we're just treating them as one since they're all related.
That's
to
right.
budget.
So the fourth one, the fiscal year 2024-25 budget is one public hearing, but under that we have a number of subsections which we'll take on. We'll hear all those presentations and then have the public hearing, and then public comments.
Chair.
Yes.
So after each one of those A, B, C, D under public hearings, we have a motion to close the public hearing.
Yes.
And then vote on each one.
And then, so yeah,
well,
B
yeah.
does not. There's no action on the enterprise fund transfer. We're just.
But you do close the public.
But we do close the hearing on that. Yes. Okay. After that, we have public comments, comments from mayor and council members, and then we have scheduled a potential closed session to talk about compensation study if we need it or if we feel like we want to have that conversation. So I think we had anyway. Yeah. So it's there if we need it.
Could I speak to the
Yes.
23-24 budget amendment?
Yes.
So there's been lots of discussion about the use of salaries for some of the items that they have requested. And so I've been in discussions with administration, and they are okay if you basically what you would do is amend the ordinance, and basically you're changing the source of funds. So instead of having the source of funds for what they want to do with as wages, that would be changed to use of fund balance. And in the case of the medical fund, use of retained earnings. So I have a sheet here with the motion language on it, in case you want to review that. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I just will say thanks to Lisa. She did some additional research on the GFOA rules and feels comfortable. Apparently, they've made some changes in the last few years about how you account for extra wages. And so they're going to be sort of doing that going forward, making some changes on how they account for those extra wages. And so she feels like this action is consistent with those rules. Okay. Is that right, Lisa? I didn't want to speak out. Okay.
Okay, getting a thumbs up over there. Good deal. Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda? All right, with that, we'll invite our Management Services Director, Lisa Stout, to come up and present on the fiscal year budget, specifically the certified tax rate.
Thank you. I appreciate some time to discuss the certified tax rate with you. What I've done instead of a presentation is I've provided a spreadsheet so that if you want to talk about different scenarios, we can make some changes and look at different things. The tax rate was released on, yeah, probably. It's okay. So we got the tax rate the end of the day on the 10th, I believe. So I'll just review it with you real quick. The value is the value they use for the certified tax rate. They set the revenue so it equals the prior year amount of revenue. And that is how we come up with our rate, the tax rate that's charged. And then they add in new growth. So new buildings, improvements to buildings that were not included in an RDA area becomes new growth for Ogden City. Or if an RDA is expired, the money that's released from the RDA back to the city is also considered new growth. So that's over and above our prior year tax revenue. So the total revenue that they're projecting for this year is just over 20 million for Ogden City. There's always this adjustment from prior year to current year. So PY is prior year, CY is current year. I'm not sure if that's a board of tax. I'm not sure what that is. So we just have to kind of account for that, but it doesn't go into the calculation. We have to pull that out when we calculate the tax rate increase.
It's the same number every year, or it's a number that they give us?
It's just a number they give us for whatever adjustments were made. And I cannot tell you why. It's seldom very large. So
Lisa,
it's a rounding issue, maybe.
Well, I wondered if it was people who maybe contested their property values. And,
possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. I just don't know. Anyway, it's not material enough for us to really be concerned with, but it just kind of.
Yeah. I had a question.
Yeah.
We always talk about new growth is something that adds in. There's got to be some degree of contraction in different places. Does that get accounted for? We just have more growth than contraction, or?
Yeah, probably. You know, so if our value went down to the point where our tax rate would give us less revenue, you know, from one year to another, the way truth in taxation is set is we get the same revenue. So it would increase the tax rate. We'd get the same revenue. So for the city purposes, we'll never see a decrease in revenue because of that, but it is a possibility.
Well, I just, you know, I mean, if something demos or, you know, different things like that happen.
Something large, yeah. That's
Just
a good point.
We always talk about that.
Yeah, the levy date is January 1st. Sorry. So it's what's existing January 1st. So if something was demoed and not significantly under construction, it would be vacant ground. So I don't have this right. The average home value is 420,808.
Lisa, do you know what it was last year? We were trying to remember.
400. Actually, I have a chart on that. Let me that up. I'm sorry, I forgot to change that. And that is average value, not median. So they take all of the homes and divide it by the number of parcels to come up with an average. Right here, column S. Here's the average home value over time.
Oh, just over 400. Okay.
Yeah, and so I got a 10-year history from the county. And then I did a year-over-year percent growth. That's YOY, means year-over-year percent growth. If you look at the 10-year growth, it's over 200%. And that's not commercial property, that's homes. Okay,
So, but your taxable value includes residential and
Correct.
And commercial.
Correct. Correct. So we'll get the 18,000 in extra revenue with it if we don't go through truth in taxation. So the truth in taxation calculation for this scenario it doesn't apply. The next scenario I ran is to get about 183,000. So just increasing the mill levy slightly. Because it rounds to that nearest millionth, it's about 184,000, and it's about 0.94%. I need a mouse. Do you have a mouse? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
I can't use these track pads.
You're good.
Yeah, we just came over an email.
Sorry. Is that still a good size for you? Okay. And then the last scenario I ran was something that we've talked about as a principle or a policy is maybe keeping the rate level, something school districts generally do when they go through truth in taxation. They capture what they call the appreciation of the community and they keep their rate level. So to do that, it'd be about $1 million more. We would have to advertise a 5.36% tax rate increase, and it would be about $25.93 on an average home would be the additional annual cost for that. And I apologize, for the 183,000 scenario, it was an additional $4.17 annually. 25.93. So our deadline to set what tax rate we want to advertise is June 22nd. So I just need advice from you on what you want to set that as. June 22nd. This is what administration recommended, this 183, and what is currently included in the budget.
You can change it, right? Can we just look at, that's about a 5. Can we look at what a 3? I just want to see about a middle.
Yeah. So let me, and I apologize, I have this set up weird.
The percent increase in the treatment to keep it low. The rate, and the other one's just under 1. So somewhere around 3, just to see kind of what that would do.
Yeah.
Oops, I need my reading glasses to do this. I apologize. So that would be just about 4. I should have based this on the dollar amount, not the percent, sorry. I can't remember which way I was going. Was I going up or down?
That's good. That's probably. 4, 15, and how much per year?
1551.
Thank you.
And then, this is for home, and commercial property would be taxed at 100%, so it'd be double that.
So Lisa, just for planning purposes, if you wanted to set it higher, you could always come
Correct.
lower. Just depends on how many people you want at the hearing. So
I think you might get the same number no matter what you set the rate at. And then I just wanted to, with the average home value history, there were a couple other historical pieces that I wanted to share with you. What new growth has been in the city for the past 10 years. So you can see it really has gone up and down. That big year, that 1.5, I think that's when BDO The BDO RDA expired. And then the last time we did these green, this is when we've done truth in taxation these years. The last time we did a truth in taxation hearing was in 2023. If we had chosen to keep the rate level in 24 and then again this year, it would have been an additional 240,000 in 24 and an additional 1.3 in 25.
Okay, so just to be clear, so what we're asking, what you're wanting to find out is by June 22nd, we need to have a number.
Yeah, advice on what kind of a revenue you'd like.
So one of our discussion items, of course, is the budget today, and we have all 2 hours, not quite 2 hours, to discuss this. So this is one of those points that we wanted to talk about is how do we feel about that? Do we want to, or do we want to go forward with the truth in taxation? If so, what numbers? So what are our thoughts?
I did have I remember you sent the thing from the taxpayer advocacy group, the statement. Can you summarize that a little bit?
I think generally it was, they're not opposed to tax increases generally. I did take issue with, they said you should do it every 5 to 7 years to account for inflation. I will comment that that was in response to some questions about Ivans, which of course we know Southern Utah is just exploding. So they are getting all kinds of new growth. So I'm not sure that 5 to 7 year time period really applies to a city like Ogden, where we're getting very little new growth, as compared.
So if that were the case, I guess they're proposing that we go, if we did it every 5 years, we're going to try and capture all of the increase of the last 5 years, or I just am a little shocked that would be the case. That'd be a huge bump.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the intent was.
Well, that's kind of why that's why I asked, because I didn't understand either.
I think generally my point was they're not against it. It's just, I guess, what the details, devil's in the details, right?
Sure. Okay, thank you.
I'll get the ball rolling.
All right, thank you, Councilmember.
I don't think anyone has a desire to do anything more than keeping the rate steady.
Yeah.
So I think we could set that at that threshold there, or notice it at that, and then in the next 2 months, if we choose to find somewhere in between that number and the 183, then we can work on that. But I would assume that the keeping it level is probably where people feel the most comfortable at the top.
As a top end.
At the high end.
At the high end, yeah.
That's my guess.
And what we
I'm fine with that.
And what we notice out is the highest potential, right? So it doesn't mean, certainly we wouldn't be able to do higher than that in our hearing, but we could adjust it downward, correct? Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on that? So if we feel okay about going forward with the truth and taxation process, everyone feel like that's probably a direction we want to go, and setting it at the keeping the rate level as the rate is an okay to, we may adjust it from there, but that's, at least from a noticing standpoint, that's what we can do.
Chair Ritchie.
Yes.
Let me just say, at this point, it's not an option whether you go through the truth and taxation or not.
Yeah. We've already
because of the timing.
Yeah.
It's just whatever number.
It's what the number is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, we could adopt the budget. We don't have the documents. Have all the documents.
Be a late night. No. Okay. All right. So any other discussion or comments on that?
Yeah, Lisa, can you, so that new growth has really dropped in the last, I mean, I get the 2021, but I guess it's just, it's more about maybe my comment here, and that is we need to continue to keep the pedal to the metal with new growth, whether that's getting buildings out of the ground, those kind of things, and economic development. I think it's just to me, $200,000 drop in new growth is huge. And we haven't seen that since 2017. So. Is that how I'm reading that? Is that correct? Or
The only challenge with that new growth is that's not intentional city development because it's outside of RDAs. So it's what I would call natural new growth. And one of the things that depressed that a little bit this year is we didn't have any RDAs expire this last December.
So it's like, so even if we get the things out of the ground, the RDAs, it's not going to change it.
If it's in an RDA, yeah. Good. Thank you for that clarification.
So can I just ask you, for my own knowledge, I was looking at the proposed budget and I thought I read in there that we were counting on $600,000 in new growth.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
So looking at the certified tax rate budget to actuals received, we have been between $500,000 and $700,000 higher. And my theory is that it's personal property. So I wouldn't recommend lowering that budget. I'd leave it the same based on just our last several years of history. I think if we set it a little bit higher, we'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there's a point that, for a homeowner who's listening to this, they would say, okay, you're looking at raising the tax rate or keeping the tax rate the same, right? And what's challenging or frustrating is, recognizing that property values, they don't all rise together and they don't all decrease together. And so even without any action, in some cases, you're going to see your tax rate, the amount you're paying go up just because of that method of not all values are appreciating or going up or going down the same. And so that's just something to kind of be aware of and think through this. It's a complicated issue for sure, but it's not something we can't get our minds around. And we have to think through all of that. And so if anybody wants to talk about this, I mean, I'm just totally fascinated by it, and I'd be more than happy to have any conversations offline for anybody listening online or whatever, just about some of the challenges that the city faces with this process. And so, yeah.
Here, the other thing that kind of complicates this for many is those who are on retirement income.
Right.
They don't get that natural increase in their retirement money every year. It comes whenever it comes, and so that's the complaints that I hear from people that are receiving a fixed income retirement, is that their money doesn't go up. You guys raise my taxes and I don't get any extra money to pay it.
Right.
And so, and I'm sympathetic to that. I think the argument that this fixed income, I mean, many people are on a fixed income, even if they're working, they don't get to make their own raises and stuff like that. But inflation does naturally happen, and it's affecting the city. And, we're unlike the federal government, we don't get to print any money. We have to
balance our budget
wherever it comes from. So it's all messaging, I think, but we do have to be mindful of people's ability to pay their taxes. So
yeah. Councilmember Blair, you had a comment?
I was just, now I'm going to use both of Councilmember Heyer's comments because I think it's a balancing act. Just to give some context, it is a balancing act because, like was mentioned earlier, whoever suggested to do it every 5 years, but then are they saying, well, then go ahead and try and recoup the loss, that revenue that you've lost had you not kept it, and you can see the amounts that she had we the amounts we could lose. Add that up over 5 years. It's a huge chunk that you would be adding on. So there is benefits to incremental and trying to maintain that rate and keep it so that we don't have to do that. But I do understand the argument that, hey, my income's fixed. Like my expenses aren't, and it makes it hard for people. But I just to comment on Councilman Hira's first comment that it's and Janine has a wonderful presentation about the money or the revenues that we did lose for not maintaining that rate or not trying to capture some of that for a long time. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. If you look 2017, the certified tax rate was over 3%. And now we're talking about a 2.25 basically percentage point. And so, and then the other aspect of this is, we asked about the certified tax rate, taxable value, including commercial and residential properties. And that's been a big shift where residential has significantly outpaced commercial value increases. And so somewhat of a tax burden shift has gone that, that's something to recognize. And again, these are things that we can't control on the city council level. This is more of a state issue. And so there's hopefully some more discussions. We had Mr. Bond here last year. Was it last year to talk about that? And we asked if there was anything being done at the state legislature. And he said, great question. And he said, these were the bills that were being talked about, but ultimately nothing went through. And Janine, if I could ask you also, because I know you've addressed this in the past, there are tax relief type programs for certain individuals, if you want to just touch on that.
Yeah, they have tax relief programs for veterans, people who are blind, people who are at a certain poverty level as they define it. And you're also going to be taking action tonight on extending those same discounts to water users. So the Weber County website has really great information on all of those programs and the forms that you need to fill out.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Graff.
Thank you. I'm just going to throw this in there too. And this is my first go around and I'm learning a lot, but in addition to property taxes and what we wrestle over around that as a source of revenue for the city, we're in a tender spot around sales tax collection as well. And we haven't seen growth in sales tax collection this year to support the city's budget. And we've got empty storefronts on our downtown Main Street. So for anybody that's listening, spend your dollars in Ogden. A healthy business begets more local business, and more local businesses fill empty commercial spaces, and formerly empty commercial spaces garner more property tax revenue and more sales tax revenue for us. So it's a win-win if we choose to spend our dollars close to home, and we can let a little pressure off the residential property tax rates because we've got a more thriving commercial sector in Ogden.
Our local merchants appreciate it too.
They sure do.
I've been a little bit out of the loop, but I don't know if the other taxing entities are also doing truth in taxation, like the school district or the county.
That's a good question. I think we asked her.
Does that also impact?
They've requested dates, so I can't tell you. I haven't seen anything that they are. So school district and the sewer district are the two that would affect Ogden residents. But the sewer districts is very small. I think, Bart, you told me it's like 0.5% or something, right? Did you tell me that? Oh, the sewer district. Sewer district. Yeah.
Yeah, sewer district. Yes. Yeah. I thought it was sewer district or school board. Sorry.
That can impact people.
So I just want, I like where we're going to set it. I think it's, I'm not sure if I misunderstood what the mayor said the other night, but I in his budget address, but I think he said we were going to hold the rate the same, but it was only going to be about a 1%, which is not the case, I think is, so I want to make that clear that the 1%, I think it's ridiculous if we're going to go at a 1%. I mean, I think I think that we can find $185,000 in our budget somewhere to pay for that. So if we're going to do it, I think we should set it at leaving it the same, which is raising the rate, not necessarily the percentage. And then I just want to clarify that not all economic development is in RDAs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I remember right, the mayor's point was that we have wage growth at a certain rate, and we have, you know, he was trying to kind of come up with a differential, and so just to keep basically the effect of the tax on the individuals at that same level, that's where that one came. And so anyway,
right. Yeah,
and then just
They also needed some time to
get
through our
for sure
analysis.
For sure, it's tough because this information comes at us like we have a very small window to really analyze and discuss and figure it out. So when it first comes to us, we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. So it's just, you know, if anyone's done a puzzle and you don't have all the pieces, it's going to be a challenging deal. Lisa, thank you so much for that analysis. These spreadsheets are just awesome, and I think we're okay to proceed with that number. And then this, you know, I'm sure we'll all pour over these spreadsheets and play with the numbers a little bit and see where we go from here. So, Janine,
I was just going to say, I think there was a change in the law that now we have to identify what the money is specifically for. Is that right, Lisa?
for next year,
I think. Next year. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So in future truth in taxation discussions, if we were to adjust the rate, we need to identify where that money would be spent as part of the budget, right? It's good to point out.
I was going to ask about it anyway.
Okay, with that, general budget discussion. So the remainder of our time here in our work session, we've kind of dedicated to that. And Glenn, have you got a present? You gonna lead the discussion for us? All right. So it's time for all right. That's all. Yeah.
Well, I'll do my best. I put together a presentation based on the small groups and some of the things that you all wanted to talk about. So it may be kind of overkill. So if you want me to go a little faster, I can certainly do that, or however you want to handle that. But I did take the 6 kind of topics, the general topics from the small group meetings, and I wanted to do a couple of different things with each one of them. So there have been some questions about kind of the mechanics of how each one of these works. You know, what you're going to amend if you want to amend this over here, what is it that you actually have to amend? What gets adopted when? How does all of this work together? So I put a slide together for each of these that goes through some of, at least what I call the mechanics, the ordinances, what's in those, you know, if you want to make changes, what you would have to do, and then just kind of a high level summary of some of the things that you have talked about and things that you may want to talk about. So like I said, if it's a lot of information, so if you want me to go a little bit faster, or skip over things. I mean, I've got a certified tax rate slide in here. Sounds like you guys have already kind of decided on that, so we could go a little bit faster if you wanted to.
We're having some issues right now.
Okay.
So sorry. And I can't see the screens. We're all frozen.
Zoom freeze.
There we go. Okay.
Zoom freeze, not as exciting as brain freeze after eating too much ice cream. Yeah.
Sorry.
Worries. Okay. Thank you, Brennan. So, sure I'm on the right slide here. So with the first two, the salary and benefits and the new positions, there's a lot of crossover in approving those or dealing with those. So I did the mechanics of each of those together, and then I have the options on a third one. So I'll run through those. So the salary schedule itself is adopted as a separate item. So you will take an action on the final budget, but you'll take a separate action on the salary schedule. And that approves the ranges for elected officials, non-merit special employees, merit employees, and then the sworn public safety, which are, of course, the police and fire. So amendments to that would include the pay ranges, the grades, the range numbers, and the steps, and then the titles. So you'll hear more about this in the coming weeks with the compensation study and some of the things that are talked about there. But that's the document that approves the ranges for those positions. So the benefits costs, those are adopted with the budget itself. So those are just included in the line items with each of the departments. But of course, if you were to make changes to the ranges or the grades or some of those other things, the steps, that might have a budgetary impact. So if you wanted to make changes to this particular document, it would be to the salary schedule. If there was a budgetary impact, it would also be to that Schedule A1 document with the final budget. Oh, let's see, here we go. I need to push the button here.
Hey, Glenn, for me, can you distinguish the difference between merit and non-merit positions?
It's kind of like salaried versus non-salaried or hourly, I think is the general description. I think somebody from HR probably would be able to give you a better description.
And which is which?
So
hourly are?
Yeah, like people in the council office are non-merit. So we're in that non-merit special category where an hourly employee would be a merit employee.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. Yeah, we don't get overtime.
And they'll like it. They'll like it.
That's right. So the new positions, as I mentioned, there's a lot of crossover with the salary schedule and with the staffing documents or the personnel schedules. So those are adopted as an exhibit to the final budget ordinance, and that's what actually authorizes the number of employees. So we may have multiple employees with one title and one range, like a police officer, a firefighter, more than one policy analyst in the council office. But it's the personnel schedules and these staffing documents that approves the actual number. So one approves the range and titles and things like that. The other approves the actual number of those positions. So for example, in FY24, there were 681 authorized full-time employees. With the 16 that are proposed in FY25, that's what would bring you up to the 697. That's where you would approve that number. So changes to this document really would be to the new or existing employees if you wanted to add more in a particular pay or a particular job, you could do that there. But like I said, there's a lot of crossover. So the salary schedule document and the staffing documents really should be consistent with each other. So if you wanted to partially fund a position or eliminate something that's newly proposed, obviously there are budgetary impacts. So you would need to make sure that the staffing document reflects that, which is the exhibit to the ordinance, as well as any budgetary impacts which show in Schedule A1. So as we go, I guess we can do it one of two ways. So it's up to you two. So we can go through these options if you want, or we can go through the whole thing and come back to the ones that you want to talk about. So you can tell me if you want to talk about this particular thing before we move on to, I guess it's the ARPA funding is next.
I would say let's go with this item first, and then yeah.
So a couple of the things that you all had talked about. First is finding a different way to pay for the increases other than the BDO lease revenue. You'll probably notice that's a bit of a theme throughout, since that kind of touches everything. You had talked about maybe setting aside a portion, maybe 5 or 10% of the salary funds so that you all have a say in what happens to the unused salaries toward the end of the year. And obviously, needless to say, there's a lot of discussion that would have to go on to get everything right and get all the information we need. But these are just some ideas that you all had talked about. Again, using some of the unspent salary funds on either future salaries or other expenses, phasing in new positions over time, or maybe funding some of the positions for just part of the year, depending on what the need is. So 9 months, half a year, whatever it is for each of the positions. Or just wait on some of the positions until staffing studies can be completed. And then, as you'll talk about over the next few weeks, really looking at the difference between merit increases and COLA increases and what impacts those would have on the budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to you all and you can discuss.
Okay, so we've had some discussions already a little bit on offline on that with the salary, the unspent salary funds, and so in tonight's action for the year-end amendment, that's what this budget amendment sheet's talking about. And so any further discussion on that, the idea there being that if we've take the leftover salaries in 2024 that were unspent, reserving those for salaries for 2025 is kind of where I think we've kind of come around to. Any other thoughts or discussion on that? And I think that number comes in right around, was it 2.2 or no, for tonight, it's 1.1 or so. Oh, it's on here. It's on here. $1.1. Okay. All right. And so the idea there is to replace instead of the policy shift with the BDO lease revenue, using that this year and looking at the prior years, the track record, it shows, that I think that's maybe somewhat, something we can plan for. Maybe a discussion on the positions, and we've talked a little bit about how, whether a full year funding of a full year or a partial year ought to be considered on some of the positions. I don't know if we have a list of the positions we can put up on the board, or if we've got those.
I don't have it handy.
Okay.
But we can probably find it. Can you pull up my tentative budget presentation for the regular meeting? It's in there that shows each of the positions. If you wouldn't mind doing that, we can grab that.
I'd have to be there or we don't need.
Oh, okay. It is in the packet material if you all have access to that.
If I remember right, there was 4 in the medical fund, right? I'm definitely for supporting those since they pay for themselves, right, out of the enterprise fund. It's the others I think I was interested in looking at.
And the police officer's the same. We have a grant that covers that, correct?
It's a contract. Yep.
Sorry, the contract that covers that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a number of them in engineering. So a senior construction and development manager, an engineering permit processor, GIS analyst in engineering, the 4 parks positions. Go ahead. Sorry.
I guess I'll just ask this question. And in my mind, is there 3 reclassifications? Is that correct? 3? Airport manager, fire captain, and marketing manager. I just wrote down simple. I'm assuming there's already somebody in those positions.
Yes.
So are we all okay with, does anyone, I mean, my opinion, I'm fine with those 3 for now. I mean, moving forward.
Yeah.
The positions for
The
Parks
3.
and Rec, I don't have any issues with either from the standpoint that, it certainly seems like they need the help. I don't know how much training it takes to get one of those people up to speed and get them identified and hired, but I know that Monty certainly does need that help.
Yeah, when we were looking at the turnover rates over year, the parks and their public services was probably the highest in the 16% the last 3 years. And on those 4 positions, that is also eliminating some part-time positions. So there was and I don't know, again, if we had an exact net increase on what the budget amount was on those, but something worth discussing.
That's by understanding, or my recollection is that we were looking at when those people needed to actually be hired on to function, and doesn't need to be for the full year, or do they need to come up like the lifeguard or water person at Marshall White? When does that person really need to be on to be effective and to be ready to go?
I would be fine January 1st. I mean, funding it partial.
And Mara, can we invite you up to maybe help give
While she's coming up, Rich, I know in our small group meetings, we kind of talked about maybe, and the parks maintenance. I know there was some discussion and some questions about what do we do with them now that it's a full-time job, and I'm not sure that I'm convinced that going from part-time to full-time is actually our best use of funds. I think I know we discussed maybe increasing that amount of money, increasing their salary to try and draw that, because it's a huge leap from paying somebody whatever they were, $15 an hour or whatever, to giving them benefits and all that comes with it. So I'm not disputing that it's needed. I'm just not sure I'm convinced it's needed 365 days. Yep. And at that amount. So
I came, the discussions we had prior to the small group, I think it was actually Chief Matthew, if I remember right, was talking about the part-time model, and it seemed to it helped me to understand that perhaps just raising the rate probably wasn't going to really get us anybody. That's kind of where I came to. I mean, we've got to get the people, and even if we raise the rate, the part-time rate, it isn't going to get us the people, and that's where I kind of got converted over to the idea of, well, maybe we better hire full-time. That's where I got to.
There might be a compromise too. For example, instead of 4 going to full-time, you could have 2 go to full-time, or there might be an in-between. Yep. Doesn't really double your staff necessarily, but you secure those 2 people rather than jumping all the way to 4.
Yeah, and just with that in mind, I know that Monty had requested 8 positions, and Justin had let us know that they 4 was what they were recommending, but they had requested 8. So just to put that in context.
And the other complicating factor, as Heather was here last week, is I think it's different hiring a professional and trained and certified firefighter and hiring somebody to work in our parks. And I think that parks and the other job that was included was Christmas Village. I think hiring that group is going to provide a different demographic, and that different demographic as a full-time employee, we heard, doesn't appreciate the benefit because they might be 22 years old and still on their parents' healthcare thing. And as quickly as there's a job available for another $1 an hour, that's where they're going, or $2 or $3. So it's not necessarily the full-time package that's going to be always a great attractant either. So I think that's a job description that's tough to fill and hold, regardless of whether it's full-time or part-time. But I think the likelihood that we'd hold them if it was a good wage at part-time might be better. Just a thought.
Mara?
Yeah.
When you address the aquatic supervisor, will you also address the, and I just wrote down simple little words, the parking operations position, that one also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. And I do appreciate this discussion. I know we are intending to have some fuller presentation by the staff and directors on the 2nd, have them coming back because you'll be discussing this for a few more weeks. But since we don't have meetings until then, I just wanted to give you a little bit more information. But for the aquatics supervisor, so that position is more than really just a lifeguard supervisor. They're involved in working out the programming and both we anticipate that with the new pool at Marshall White and then looking at that in conjunction with the existing pool at Lauren Farr, that for one thing, scheduling is almost going to be at an ice sheet level. I mean, if you can imagine, like, I think there's going to be a lot of demand for the use of the pool, not just for different swim times, different types of swim, whether it's like open rec or if we have any other event requests and those kinds of things. But besides from their programming, there's a lot of decisions that will go in that need to be there for the rollout that are going to take some additional time, such as equipment needs. We're also looking at the appropriate fee schedule, and so there's other uses. They're going to be coming, almost more of an event planner, a schedule, an overseer of personnel, and those things. We really feel that they need to take place as quickly as possible, but with the budget delay into August is probably going to be a little bit longer. And so I know we're almost kind of splitting hairs, but we'd like to get that position started as September is now kind of when it would come online versus January, because already feeling like that person's going to be running fast with all of the needs coming online with not only the new pool, but balancing events and other requests there. For the positions for parks, we'll have Monty prepared with really the full discussion of the things that are done year round by their employees. They're on a really tight schedule. When you come in October, you'll notice that they're already starting to put Christmas Village lights up for November. So things happen really quickly. They're on a tight schedule. They're doing a lot of pruning year round, sort of vegetation maintenance with not just mowing, seasonal mowing that occurs, but there's year-round care needs for the parks. And so we'll have a more detailed look for you of what that schedule looks like and all the responsibilities of a park employee, and feeling already short. And then even with a possibility of looking more creatively at hiring part-time. I know we've discussed already the supervision that those types of part-time employees need, but we appreciate that discussion will be coming. I do have our parking expert in the room, but I'll try to summarize too again. And it's one of those.
You ready, David?
Yeah, that would be David back there. And I don't know if you would like, or if you want me to, or if you would give us the opportunity to invite you up for a minute just to talk about.
However, whatever you like.
I mean,
yeah.
Sure. We'll let David do it because he's
coming up. Can I just ask? So on all of those positions, then where we're looking really at getting started in September, would it be safe to say that rather than funding a full year on every one of them, if we adopted every position, doing it from September on all of them as a budgeting standpoint, that would be we could do that. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind.
I'm kind of curious after what you said was how many man hours do we use throughout the year? I mean, so is there going to be a 3-month slack time somewhere, and how will you fill that? And those kind of things that's what kind of goes through my mind when I think of adding a full time where it never been full time before. Is there going to be some slack time that? And I'm sure Monty has
those are
projects that don't have to be done as on a calendar date, but they can be fill in projects. I don't know what you want to call them.
Yeah, and I think Justin has that information when he comes back about looking at it as a man hour kind of a discussion. But I do know that they're just so programmed out throughout the year. There isn't a slack time. There's always something to be picked up at every single time. They're just catching up. Yeah, person hour as well. So I was just using, but person hour, and then but also there isn't a slack time. I mean, there's just when this is done, you go on to the next thing, and then you go on to the next thing, and they really have it programmed out. So I've been impressed with the way they have that all scheduled out to hit all the different events and all the seasons. And they can't, as soon as the summer event, after, the rodeo is done, for example, then they're moving on to the next set of things that they can take on. So it's a lot, but I think we're actually really looking forward to the opportunity to having, making that presentation and having that detailed discussion with the council so that you can more fully understand the nature of those positions. So
Thank you.
David, thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Hello.
Hello.
We're hoping to be on your agenda in the next little bit to kind of go through a full review of the parking management plan as it stands right now. It's been a minute since we've talked to you guys about this, and there's two new council members that probably haven't seen the whole thing, and so we need to spend some more time on that. And so hopefully that'll be coming to you very shortly. But for the last year, we've been working on the various elements of the parking management system in terms of how it's going to look, what are the details, how is it going to interact with current city operations relative to parking. We've been meeting with local businesses, been giving presentations at different groups, all of that informing the request for proposals that we're working on right now to hire a parking vendor that will manage the day-to-day operations in terms of enforcement and so forth. And that will be done in conjunction with the new parking and mobility operations supervisor position that is part of the budget package. And so we plan to contract with the external parking services vendor initially to help us set up and manage the new paid parking system that we're thinking down the road 3 or 4 years, we may be able to do all that ourselves internally and not need an outside vendor. We'll see how that goes, but we need an internal position to manage that on a regular daily basis. And so it's critical that we hire the new parking and mobility operations supervisor position soon. I would say we're already in some ways behind schedule in that regard. To help us with the oversight of the awarding of the bids for the vendor for the software and the hardware, development of the new parking ordinance that needs to go into place to replace our current parking ordinances, update that with the new rate schedule and so forth, how we're going to manage everything. And so I would say if we were looking at the high level schedule at this point, we need to look at bringing on our new parking and mobility operations supervisor within the next month or two, complete and publish our paid parking request for proposals later this summer, complete and present the new parking ordinance to you guys for approval in late summer, award the contracts for the paid parking system services vendor by early fall. And initially roll out the first phase of the paid parking for free the last several months of the year, and then go online with paid parking in the first phase area during the first several months of 2025. And so you can see that there's a full schedule over the next few months. And so we need to bring you guys up to speed on all the logistics of how that's all going to work and what our messaging is going to be to the public. And we've already started that with the public engagement, but we need to make sure that all of you are on the same page and have the full support you feel like you need to respond to questions from constituents and businesses and everyone in the community. So we know you're going to get that. So we need to bolster the information that you have to make sure you're ready for that. So, okay.
I just have a curiosity. It's sort of when we approved sort of bonding and doing all that as part of the project, and in essence, we approved this position being created in a way, because I remember that being part of the report. And
it was like January of last year.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious where in the timeline for that initial plan was this position? Is it aligning appropriately with what we kind of agreed to?
I think so, as part of this year's budget, right?
Because we have a couple of years where we kind of have leeway with the funding mechanism, right? So that we can kind of on-ramp all of the infrastructure and everything that we need to start getting
there is that
out of it, out of the enterprise fund.
But yeah, based upon our financial projections at a high level, though, it is important that next year we start collecting revenue. So
does that become kind of an enterprise fund by itself before we get all the infrastructure in place? You know, like, is it a chicken and the egg kind of situation where it's going to have its own fund all set up?
Yes, we are setting up its own enterprise fund.
So then that salary would come out of that enterprise fund rather than out of the general
How are we
fund?
going to set that up?
Yes.
You're saying yes, yeah.
It will be funded by BDO's revenue
to begin with.
There's no revenue.
Right.
Right.
I was just thinking that would make a difference in my mind if it's kind of already part of that other budget.
Yep. So there's some initial work that needs to be done to get it ready over the next 6 months or so, and then start generating revenue. And the first phase, by the way, is obvious where the most congestion is: 25th Street and Kiesel. That's where paid parking will go online first, and then we'll see a little bit of a ripple effect as parking moves out further from the city core, which is deliberate to some extent as we start to uncongest some of those congested areas, because we have paid parking, and those that are wanting to pay for premium parking right in front of their favorite restaurant will be able to access that. But
I guess I was a little bit, I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I was kind of surprised that so much parking was closed during the construction, because it's sort of already getting people molded to the idea that we have very limited parking in a way, since that I didn't realize that like that whole back lot would already be closed. And also I was pretty surprised when you presented to Ogden Downtown Alliance, was like a month ago, how so many business owners still seem totally in the dark about like the process or when it was coming online, or even what some of the benefits might be. They, you know, I was kind of surprised about that. So I can see where having a person out there sort of trying to explain it all over and over to everybody.
Yeah, we can never communicate too much.
Yeah, it's really challenging. And I don't mean to get in the weeds, but just this idea, you know, one small business owner was saying, well, I think we're just going to have to move because we're going to need parking for these people that are coming from distances to, you know, go to our business. And their thinking was they can't just drive around looking for parking for 15 minutes before they come. And I was thinking, well, with a new parking system, they should know where they're going to park before they get there. You know, it was sort of.
It was actually designed to help.
It was a little bit, yeah, like they didn't totally understand how it could possibly be beneficial at all. And that just really concerned me because we've been talking about it for a couple of years. And I know I even went around and tried to talk to people about it too. So
yeah.
It's complicated.
It's an ongoing project for sure in terms of the communications part of it. And even the court parking and the construction for Wonder Block that's impacting parking downtown, that also is a communication challenge for us and opportunity as well. And so we're, in fact, even tomorrow we have a meeting with our developer and regarding some of the business impacts that we're seeing now and some of the citizen impacts and confusion over grant and the court parking and all that. So some new signage went up just even yesterday. And so we're just trying to explain that and making sure everybody's getting the communication. So it's a big project. And everybody I talk to business-wise, they're like, we get it, we're excited about it, but we need to also survive for the next 2 years.
Right.
So we're working on it.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Yep.
Mara, looks like you have some additional.
And just really quick, I wanted to thank David because I think he needing support and that communication piece really underscores why we wanted to get that position underway as soon as possible, because it is a big communications task. And there's just, we want to have that person as develop their expertise and get trained and up to speed as quickly as we can.
Can I ask Mara on the parks positions, how much is that a response to the vandalism and the other issues that we're dealing with there? I can imagine that would be a factor in the turnover and having to deal with that. But are these positions, is it driven by that, or is it all the other things that Monty's going to talk to us about?
Yeah, I think it's all the other things. The ways we're approaching the park vandalism is a multifaceted approach. We do have a third-party contractor because we are really dealing with biohazards, medical hazards, things that are really require protective gear and a pretty high level of specific cleanup in a lot of instances. And so for the worst of those situations, we hire a company that Serve Pro, I believe is their name, that actually deals in those kinds of cleanups. And so it's pretty severe. And we also have, of course, the police department stepping up, which we've heard positive things because they're, frequenting the parks. And and there's even, I don't know if we've implemented this, but we've talked about just private security that goes around, because it's even more than just the community policing teams can handle on that kind of 24/7 basis. And so the approach to the vandalism is specific, and so that's a different way we're handling that. But all the other park needs, and certainly addressing that and just keeping up with repairs that need to be done is part of that crew's responsibility. But the cleanup itself, like that severe case, we do outsource that.
Okay, perfect. And speaking of contracting, so on the engineering positions, is that something that we've looked at or addressed and as a possibility versus a full-time position?
Yeah, I think we have looked at some of those, and we have Taylor here. I think, if you don't mind, I'll give him the opportunity because he has firsthand experience with the difference and attracting contract employees versus full-time.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk. We went through this exercise a couple of years ago when we were talking about hiring new engineers on who represent our principal engineers over our stormwater, sewer, and water system. And what we noticed was when we brought those staff members on board compared to hiring consultants or contracting out, we were saving the city somewhere between $500,000 and $1.1 million a year. So it was pretty significant savings in the amount of projects we were able to do, the amount of savings we were able to recognize by handling some of these things with our own staff, and the additional work we were able to take on with some in-house type projects of other things we're able to do. And so the specific items that I'm thinking of that we get really good at are project management, construction inspection, and other items related to that. And so you might recall we were really good at taking the downtown of the city and putting it under construction. And as we're able to manage and kind of look through and do some of those, those were the big items we were able to undertake. As we had to go out and we would have to hire someone and bring someone in, those were pretty significant costs that we were starting to recognize in addition to contract costs. So that was our proposal a couple of years ago. We were seeing some of the same items come in with construction management for projects, for instance, like Marshall White with the Wonder Block. We also have a bunch of ramp projects, and there are so many other grants I think that the city could take advantage of that right now we just aren't. And if we could, it would be helping us to offset those projects as well. And we would recognize that, I think, as an overall savings. So there is an option that we could contract with engineering firms. They would love that. I'd get a whole lot more Christmas $50 and under gift cards. But I think if we're able to manage it from a staff level, which we feel like we can, bringing on one position, we feel like there would be significant savings that could go back into the city for projects and other related items. So that was the crux of our proposal. So again, that was from something that we had looked at many years ago, and it's similar to what we're kind of up against right now.
But isn't that position more of construction development manager is more of a making sure the projects are getting out of the ground and they're not necessarily developing projects
yeah, when we say a project manager position, so what'll happen, so I'll speak of engineers and then I'll move into that position. So our engineers would start from the very initial phases, looking at funding, take it all the way through design, move it all the way through to construction. We have some engineers that are extremely good at designing plans. And when you get into the nuances of dealing with contractors and being in the field, it takes a different set of person. What we're trying to do is if we can have a formal handoff between those two of someone that can handle and manage that construction in the field to handle those issues and handle those problems. It's a pretty significant training issue that we run up against when you have engineers designing and then putting them out in the field. So it takes a certain personality. I wish I could say that all engineers were great at working with contractors, but I think we all know otherwise in this instance. But you're right. This position, what we're looking at is to handle that construction aspect. We would develop these packages, get them to this point, and be able to hand them off. So instead of now training everyone to do everything, we get people really skilled and specific at finalizing some of those purposes, and then taking engineers and others and keeping them in the place where they excel at and are really good at. And that's at least our hope that we're trying to do in some of that aspect. I do feel like we do have enough construction that happens in the city that we would recognize a significant benefit from keeping and maintaining that project, or excuse me, that project manager, especially with a lot of the ramp funds and everything else that we could otherwise handle with some of our managers that get otherwise taxed doing other portions of their jobs.
It just doesn't seem to me that it needs to be a PE is what it is.
Oh, yeah. No, what we applied for wasn't a PE position. Sorry, it was just under engineering.
That's
because
why
we were handling construction. Okay.
Say that again.
Well, to me, I think it's a lot easier to contract for a construction management type person than it is a engineer developing the project.
Okay. Any other questions on the engineering positions council has? I think the only other position we haven't really talked about is the service writer, stores clerk.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the grant writer.
Oh, and the grant writer. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. So yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So, hey, and this is, I like that we have a grant that we're thinking about writing grants. But I'm wondering if it would be more beneficial to see if we could, that is another position we could contract for, maybe to a company where they have a wider breadth of people that could maybe one specialized in ramp grant funding and another one's specialized in federal grants, or another one's, specializes in police or public safety, all under one company. And I do think we need to have a grant writer. I think that there's a lot of money we're leaving on the table. I just don't know that we need to bring it in-house. I'm sure you grappled with that too, I'm assuming, looking back there.
Yeah, well, yeah, come on up. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but it sounds like there are still people coming to talk about these positions. We haven't quite heard everything that we're going to hear about this. So I think maybe
it's questions as a question as opposed to a.
Maybe those questions also get
fine.
kicked down till the July 2nd, whatever that is.
Meeting date, that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
And we've experienced with police department and, having somebody in-house there that we can talk about that too. And I think just in a nutshell, there's benefit to having somebody know the kind of internal workings of a department, and they can kind of respond a lot more quickly to opportunities that come our way. And then we can talk a little bit about how we got to, how the public services department got to wanting to hire one as well. So we'll talk about that at the next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, yeah, with that, and maybe with the interest of time, maybe we move to the next item.
I just had one other follow-up.
Yes.
I apologize. It's not about specific positions, but I am very interested in this idea about the unspent salary. So I don't know if we're going to talk about that further in these other discussions, but I know that's something that we brought up, that instead of it going back into buying equipment or something like that, that it can roll over to help to cover some.
Right, yeah.
I don't know where that fits in.
So it kind of fits into that tonight with the budget amendment. The motion language is that. So yeah, Janine, if you have any more to add to that.
Really decided to do that or not? I'm very interested in that.
Yeah. So what will happen by changing the source of the transfer? Then at the end of the year, all of that money will just go back into fund balance and can be reappropriated.
But will we still kind of get, I've never seen the report like we had this year, and maybe I was missing it or something, but where it really added up all of those things. So I think I would love to be able to see that at the end of the year and then see it go back into the budget so we knew exactly how much was happening.
Yeah, and we've had some discussions with, it'll be a little bit different about the way they account for it, and they will show how, because if you notice that purple and green sheet shows it's pretty consistent percentage that they have from year to year that's left over. And so I think they have some good information that they can use for budget on. So.
And I think that relates to that second bullet up there, Angela, that basically says setting aside. So just whatever that percentage is, if it's an average of I just did the average, but it's like 4.5%. We set it aside, but that doesn't mean if we're 100% hired, we need to use that money, right? But
right.
Yeah. Well, there is, there's got to be a consequence of that policy change, because currently the department heads are using the money for something else.
Only some departments.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of my point is that, I mean, are these things, we're going to have to account for this. Either we don't spend it or we do. And, so it's just going to change the way we go about it, probably. And I'm a favor of doing it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm sure if I'm a department head, I'm sitting there thinking, gee, I used to use that money for this that is really important to me, or this important to this part.
True. Yeah, and I can see like one thing that I've known that's happened with other kinds of agencies, right, is if you have extra left at the end, it's seen as like maybe your budget will get decreased or something, and then they want to spend it, so to spend out everything on something. And I'm not saying our team does that. I've seen it in other places where they will just spend it out so that then it doesn't appear that they have something left. So yeah, you don't want it to be like a reverse incentive to.
And that's kind of my point is we just got to be careful about unintended consequences.
For sure.
Yeah, and I guess I say that it's a good, I mean, I think that it becomes more transparent. So if you need the, $5,000 copier, then we can look at that and say, okay, maybe that does need to come from BDO lease revenue or wherever that one-time money is. So I think it's not a bad thing. Just
in my opinion, as I've thought about this, which I appreciate and I applaud those that worked on it. In my opinion, I think it sets the employees on top. I think it sets the employees as the most, they are the most important. And in my opinion, it seems like, and again, I'm not saying that this is how it, but in my mind, it feels like we've had money. How can I say this? We've had money available to purchase things. And again, I'm not saying anything that has been purchased is not merited or not valued or not important. And then we, for lack of a better term, scramble to find money to put into salaries. And in my opinion, it should be the other way around. And I think this follows the path to maybe change that mentality where we put money aside that goes for salaries and stays for salaries. And that's our most important. We want to make sure that we have money for salaries. And then when those other needs come up, that's what we should be, for lack of a better term, scrambling for or searching for money for, so that we're always available and always have the money for salaries. So we're not trying to find new ways to fund to fund our employees. So I appreciate and I applaud that bullet point alone.
Yeah, I do too. I think we're on pretty firm ground by taking this approach. But we just do need to be aware of these other things. And thank you for putting it that way. I think that was well stated and kind of in everybody's mind.
And following up on that, is this just that's how it's going to be done from now on, or is this a new policy that has to be implemented or changed or written or adopted?
I think we need to work through exactly how that would work.
Okay.
So I don't have an answer for that quite yet.
Like I say, it's not really a new policy. Our financial principles say that, salary money will be used for salaries. It's just not necessarily, it's just, we've also at the end of the year always done some of these transfers to cover things that they've needed. So
on this, Janine, could you read this amended portion, this new language, and could you read it using different words? I'm kind of lost in what this is actually accomplishing with the verbiage that's there.
So really all it's changing right now is we have 195 in police, 300 in fire, 330 in public services. that are all proposed for transfers from wages, their wages account, to other expenditure accounts. And what this does is, instead of saying it's going to come from wages, you're saying it's going to come from fund balance, from our savings, from the money that we have that's sitting in savings. And then that money, then this money that you're changing and having it come from fund balance, this money that's coming from wages will then roll over back into the savings account, the fund balance.
And can be then reapportioned,
and then it can be reappropriated
to wages.
Wages for next year.
And in my head, I'm hearing this as we're going to take unused wages and roll it into the next fiscal year to be used as wages.
Yes.
But I'm not reading those words
That's
in here. But the process is captured in this amended.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you've got the fund balance that has the savings, and we're putting the wages into the savings while we take the money out of the savings to pay for those equipment items. So they're sort of passing.
Where's the savings?
The fund balance, the 22% fund balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then sits in there, well, then goes into the next. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so that amount will be earmarked as, okay, now it's sitting in here as wages, and now it's going to be appropriated as wages moving into the FY25 budget.
Lisa, do you want to kind of just clarify on that?
She's like, no.
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Use fund balance. Maybe that's right.
So accounting wise, we won't change how we account for things. What will happen is what we'll start doing essentially is estimating turnover. So estimating vacancies for the coming year based on our results from prior year.
Right.
So in February, when we're starting to put the budget together, January, February, December, November, we will estimate that. So just be aware that this is going to be a very rough estimate. We actually will not know the results of operations for wages until probably mid-August, by the time we account for all the accruals and just settle all of those accounts. So we'll have to look back, but we will start building in an estimate for turnover based on prior year savings. So it will be proposed as it will be a budget mechanism to use fund balance for that estimated savings from turnover based on last year's results.
And ultimately, I mean, our goal is to retain people all the time. So if it gets smaller, it's a good thing, but then we'll just have to.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And when we were living at a 5% fund balance, that would have been a very scary thing to do.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Where we've got enough of a savings account set aside or fund balance set aside to cover those, if it does get smaller. I feel like this is actually a really good suggestion and very safe for the city to take on.
In the discussions that I've had with others, it's our goal to see every department in the city fully employed, or fully hired. We don't want those gaps, right, because it diminishes services to the community.
And adds workload to the other people.
Yeah. And burnout and turnover.
Yeah. So thank you.
Lisa, I have a question too. So what happens to the fire department who had some fund balance, 300,000 that they wanted to put towards a pumper? Do they have that incentive to continue to set that money aside for their department, or does that kind of disappear for them now?
No, I don't think so. I think the instructions I would give, and I know Mara has given to the police chief, who is one who really, now that he is fully employed and using most of his payroll dollars every year, he doesn't have a lot of operations to buy supplies. So I would propose that this next year they continue to come and ask for fund balance. And then next year they do a true estimate of what they need for operations. And we propose putting that in the budget from the beginning.
Love it. Thanks for taking that time. I just kind of wanted to clarify that we're all on the same page.
So Janine,
why we were doing it. Yeah.
Sorry. And I guess maybe maybe this is, So from wages and to use fund balance, is that, it kind of just looks kind of funny the way it's written, and the same with and to use.
So I guess the way I wrote this was instructions for the accounting people, right?
Right.
So I'm sympathetic that it might not be as clear to residents about what you're doing, but it's saying instead of using this account, we're going to use this account.
It just says, it doesn't say and to use, it just says from wages to use of fund balance.
Yeah, so it says we're to change from wages to use of fund balance. So if you take out, it's a long sentence. That's, it's kind of run out, but if you can reword it, that's fine. This is my best shot.
I can see the.
Slide 2.
Yeah.
Slide 2 of 30.
Let's see. We are going to skip over ARPA for now to talk about the water rates, since that is on your agenda for consideration tonight. So as you know, the council approved the bond parameters, and that delegates the authority to approve the final bonds. It is anticipated that the closing would be in July. However, that rate structure does need to be in place. So if the council decides not to approve the utility rate or the water rate changes tonight and pushes those either a few weeks or into August, then that closing would happen after that. But the ordinance itself, as proposed tonight, it's a 4% increase plus the blended inflation adjustment each year for 5 years. The effective date is July 1. And so if you did push that, we would have to either amend the ordinance or see how that would affect everything. But as you'll see on the agenda, they are treated as fee amendments. So you'll see any of these utility rates as fee amendments as it goes on an agenda. There is some language in your financial principles and in your budget guidelines that talk about fee amendments. So they give us some guidance for how to consider fee amendments. So that's why we consider those as fee amendments, even though they're water rate changes. And so with a change to that kind of an ordinance, particularly the one you're going to hear about tonight, there are changes that can be made to the percentage increase, the timing when that goes into effect. So like I said, they're automatically, the way the ordinance is written is they would automatically go into effect every year for the next 5 years. So you wouldn't necessarily need to come back and approve that 4% plus that BIA every year. But you could adjust that, you could adjust the timing, and then you could adjust whether or not that goes into effect automatically. So if you wanted to change something like that, that again is going to have budgetary impacts. It may change the modeling that you've seen that Fred has done, and it may have an impact to the financial principles that you've adopted as well for the health of those utility funds. So if you wanted to make a change to that, you would need to make a change to the water rate ordinance. Again, that's in your packet for consideration tonight. And then if there are other changes, let's see, if there are budgetary changes, that may then be reflected in the Schedule A1 with the final budget. So some of the things that the council's talked about is maybe front loading the increases, so higher increases the first few years with smaller increases later, or eliminating or limiting that automatic increase, that annual increase, and maybe doing it for 2 or 3 years as an automatic increase, and then that would really require a reanalysis after a few years to see if that 4% is really needed after a couple of years. So those are some things that you all have talked about as far as that goes. Again, that's on your agenda for consideration tonight. You have also talked about tabling that or continuing that to adopt that with the final budget also. So just turn it over to you all if you have any discussion.
So and if we took public input on this tonight and continued it, I think we had a conversation about, Lisa, if the bond closing in August would be okay, or I mean it wouldn't. It's available as an option. So
I kind of like the idea of having it re-looked at in like 3 years or something, just because I sometimes have felt that as a council member that I'm like sort of stuck with decisions that were made a really long time ago. And so I wouldn't mind having some benchmark. I don't know what would be recommended, 2 or 3 or 4 years or something, where I have it at least looked at again you know, to your point, say, is this really working? I mean, maybe it'll have to be increased more than that. I don't know, but you know.
So that's a good observation. But if we adopt this as we've discussed it, 5 years, and we get to year 3 and the financial analysis is pointing to we're collecting too much or we're collecting too little to support what we need to around the loans, can we visit it at year 3 as the financial analysis points out? Do we necessarily have to address it if it's working?
Yeah, and it's really as firm as you want to be on that. They are looked at every year with the budget, the utilities. Fred updates the models regularly, so we could easily look at that in a few years. It would just be a matter of us remembering to say in 2027, with that FY28 budget to come back and look at this again.
Or Fred might throw up a flag after year 2.
Yeah,
and say we need to revisit this. Yeah.
So yeah, if you adopt the ordinance with all 5 years, that doesn't mean you can't come back in a couple of years and make a change to that.
Thank you.
Either up or down, if you find out it's not enough or if you find out it's too much.
But 5 years is in the ordinance.
Correct.
5 years is in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Want to visit it on the 3rd year?
You would have to amend it if you wanted it a different duration, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just heard 2 things. I heard that we could adjust it even if we adopt the 5-year language anytime, 2 or 3 years. And then I just heard we could only adjust it if we set it for 3 years. So what help me understand because I heard the 2 opposite things there.
I believe that if we're not collecting enough, it will come up on its own, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty much we're going to say, somebody's going to say, yeah, we got to get more money.
Yeah.
If we're starting to collect too much, it will have to be a proactive comeback.
Okay. That's
so if we want it to do that, we probably better say we want it to do that.
I agree. I understand being tied to what other councils or what people in the past have done. But I think Fred was clear when he came and said it's pointless to go any farther than 5 years. Mm-hmm. Those projections don't last that long anyway. So I mean, to me, 5 years is locked in. It has to be we're going to reevaluate it within 5 years. Again, we as government are slow, and so I think if we said 3 to 4, I think it would go 4 to 5 anyway. So that's just my opinion.
It has in the past.
Yeah.
We've experienced that same thing. Yeah.
Given that, I think I'd be okay with the 5-year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am too.
I just wanted to let you know as a side note that EPA is actually planning a trip, and these are the DC EPAs, not Denver EPAs, are planning a trip on August 8th to be here, kind of as a celebration of this, and they don't often do that. So we'll be working, they'll probably have some sort of reception here in the chambers and just kind of welcome them. Yeah.
So maybe we can invite them to bring their checkbook and make a contribution. We can pass the hat, pass the
environmental protection agency. Not from Denver, from where?
DC, Washington, DC.
Why would they be?
Apparently this is just kind of a cool thing that they want to do, and they want to come and see what their project's going to pay for, I guess. Their money's going to pay for.
Okay. So let's back up a little bit to the ARPA funds. So the remaining ARPA funds, that was appropriated in 2023. Per the requirements of those funds, it has to be encumbered by the end of this calendar year and then spent by the end of 2026. So if the council wants to relook at that, that can be reappropriated. So it would require a budget amendment or a budget opening to get that, to have that reappropriated. So likewise, if there are, if you want to use this money for FY25 appropriations that are proposed in the budget, there may be some changes that you would need to make to the Schedule A1 as well. So some high level things that you've talked about, using some of that ARPA funds to pay for the wages and benefits for FY25, and then jointly identify the priorities for that funding after the budget. Or likewise, using that ARPA funding for FY25 expenses and then reappropriating the essentially freed up money on the other side to talk about the priorities after the budget. But that would kind of get you over some of the date requirements of the ARPA funds.
Glenn, can you remind me what the original city's proposal was for the use of the ARPA funds?
I may have to defer to somebody. I'm not as familiar with what the original intent was for that, if possible.
Yeah, so this money is money that the city got for lost revenue. And so it's just been set aside as general operations. I think that's what it was appropriated for, is general operations. But it's just sitting there, and the mayor has some ideas that we've discussed what he'd like to do with it. He's had some other ideas that he's willing to discuss. It's just that the clock is ticking. So.
Is there any proposal in the budget for the use of these funds? That's what I can't remember.
No.
Not in his budget, because it's already been appropriated. He didn't, but after that, when we started asking questions, then they provided the information, the idea about the field house and some other things like that.
I would just say in our joint leadership meetings, he's been very open to wanting to be collaborative in this discussion on the use of these funds. And so, yep.
When can you go back one slide? Did it say we have to by December 24th? Okay.
Encumbered, yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, I don't know if you have any additional insight or comments on this item. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Do you mind just the microphone there?
Yeah, just confirming what you've said is looking forward to a collaborative process to discuss. The mayor has thought about this being legacy type funding for legacy projects, but potentially trying to utilize funding as almost a initial contribution that the city might have to incentivize other, even private funding for projects. So Union Station is another project that he's mentioned, and we could almost looking at it as possibly the way Ogden School District funded the restoration of the high school, using a lot of private donation. It was just a thought, but we could use a portion of our funds to kick off that kind of a funding structure. So I think the idea would be to whatever we can, would maybe some ideas that we feel comfortable, collaboratively if possible, then using, thinking of our money in that way is to leverage additional funds. So similar to how we put in the 12 million for the pipeline, and we're able to leverage, another 88 million on top of that through, our contribution. So I think we would love to be able to see those dollars magnify in that same way. So, yeah.
I think it's Glenn, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.
So just if I'm understanding
this correctly, if we want to use that money with this budget, anything in this budget, if we want to
in FY25,
it has to be by August or whatever, or is that when we have to do it by then? We have to appropriate it by then?
Well, the money itself, if you wanted to make a change to use this money in place of the FY25 money that's being proposed, yeah, we'd need that with the final budget.
Okay.
I mean, ideally.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, we have until the end of the year to come up with some collaboration and kind of figure out ways to use this. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Anything else on that one?
I'm just going to put my 2 cents worth in. And the mayor was at this meeting last Wednesday night, and so was Mara and the police chief at Lester Park. And there is a desire in that community to see that park used, become busy, and safe. And I think there's a willingness on the part of the community to take on some of that. I think the overarching theme was one of activation, and they had some real ideas around what could be done physically, uh, like Liberty Park in Salt Lake City, put a running surface around it. It's just cinders. It's nothing fancy, but it gets used. And light the park and get rid of that pavilion restroom mess that is unusable by families because you can't be in the pavilion and let your kids go to the bathroom. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds. Let's take the opportunity to invest in some of the assets that we've already got that are in need of some attention. And if it means leveraging it to a higher level, let's do that. The pool at Lester Park was built in 1938, or not at Lester, at Lauren Farr, was built in 1938. And I went to the park and looked around, and that's in need of some legacy type renovation. And I think it would serve the community really well. It's on a bike path. It's in our central business district. We've got housing coming there in that project that we sold the Piccadilly building for. I mean, there's going to be population come to this area and use for that. Let's really lift the assets that we've got that have gone neglected for so long and employ this money there.
Thank you. Some of us call it a running path, and bikes use it occasionally.
Nickel, I'm a big spender.
I do appreciate it, though. I do appreciate that mindset and that thinking to invest and to make it, for lack of a make a splash within our community with funds that we were given to help us.
Okay, so it sounds like most of the discussion has taken place with the certified tax rate already, but I just want to touch on this a little bit just as far as the mechanics go. So Lisa did a great job of explaining what it is, how it works, where we get the numbers, what it's intended to do. The actual approval of the certified tax rate has changed over the years. So we used to get it later, and so it would be approved separately in July. The last few years, that's actually been included in the final budget ordinance. So it'll have a paragraph that says this is our stated certified tax rate. So it has bounced around a little bit in how it's approved. So the anticipation is that it would be with the final budget ordinance, whatever number it is that you set. But of course, if it does go above what the county has given us, then it does require us to go through the truth and taxation noticing in that process, which we will be doing this year. Again, as discussed earlier, we can advertise a higher rate and either adopt that rate or a lower rate, but we can't advertise a lower rate and adopt a higher rate. And of course, there's budgetary impacts with that. So there would be changes to the final budget ordinance and then the Schedule A1. So some of the things that we've talked about, Lisa's numbers are definitely more solid than mine, but this just kind of gives an idea of some of the other methodologies that you've thought about. You see them maintaining the rate there. It was just a little over $1 million. And one thing I want to check with Lisa about, I apologize for putting her on the spot to do math on the fly, which is always dangerous. So in the proposed budget, there's already the $183,000 programmed in. So if you were to say adopt, a rate to maintain the rate, that would produce just over $1 million. But in reality, that would just be about $870,000 more than is already in the budget. So it wouldn't be a new $1 million. It would be that 183 that's already programmed plus the difference on there. So just to give you an idea as far as the numbers go. Any other conversation on that? I think we've had most of that. Okay. So I think we've had quite a bit of conversation on BDO lease revenue as well. But just to go over the mechanics on that. So that is approved with the budget itself. So if you wanted to make some changes to that, that really is reflected in the Schedule A1. The ordinance itself that would authorize that transfer, that 12% transfer as what we call that above the line, or something that was authorized with the ordinance every year. That ordinance and that discussion will happen in the coming weeks. So you haven't seen that ordinance yet. So there's no final decision on that as an ongoing matter. So right now that 1.8 would be in there as a one-time transfer.
I was just gonna say, unless you want to lower it because you're increasing taxes,
right?
That, you know, so you balance all that.
So yeah, and that goes into that a little bit. If you want to identify another source, which may be the property tax increase, then you could either, you know, approve a different amount or leave that in there and find other money, just leave that in fund balance. Or some of the other things we've talked about is if that transfer were to happen on an ongoing basis, maybe find another metric, you know, to tie it to. Maybe it's, you know, a percentage that goes with capital projects, or you know, change that to a below the line. Maybe it's finding all the other sources, the carryover, some of the other things, and then whatever else we need, that would be transferred rather than that upfront above the line transfer. So some conversation about that have happened, and of course there will be more ongoing. So any other discussion about that at this point? Okay, in the last couple of minutes, that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go over all of the decisions that the council has to make related to the budget. So this is kind of the summary of some of those things. So with the final budget in August, you would adopt the budget itself, which would include the certified tax rate, the Schedule A1 changes, and the staffing documents in that action. And then the salary schedules would be a separate document and a separate approval. And Heather's here. Maybe we can circle back to the very beginning and she can give a better explanation of merit and non-merit employees than my very unsophisticated explanation. So maybe we could recruit her, if that's okay, if you all have questions about that.
Well,
Welcome, Heather.
When is that on the calendar to discuss the salary schedules in a public meeting?
July 2nd. Yep. And then the consultant will be here the 9th, and then you'll have an opportunity on the 16th of July.
Okay, so you just wanted a definition of the non-merit and the merit positions. Okay,
Yes.
so how we classify non-merit and merit, we base it on protected and not protected is how we look at it. So non-merit is usually a lot of our general employees. So they have protection rights when they get terminated, they have a pre-determination hearing. And then merit, it's kind of at will. So typically a lot of our non-merit is our exempt positions. So our division managers, our directors, yes. And then our merit is our protected employees. And so that's kind of the difference between the two, if that's easy to digest, I guess.
Much better than my explanation, so thank you. And then a couple of other ordinances that we do need to put in place. So David mentioned the creation of the Parking Mobility Enterprise Fund. We do still need to have an ordinance that formally creates that. And then a minor change that clarifies the retirement for some of the new fire positions. So all of that should be in place for the final budget. And then some of the other things that are related to the budget approvals, a lot of which will happen tonight. So the tentative budget, that includes the Schedule A changes, as well as the Justice Court judge salary adjustments, which need to be in place by July 1st. The capital improvement plan, the enterprise fund transfer, again, just the hearing, no action on that. Then the fee amendments, if you choose to adopt those or continue those. The RDA and MBA budgets, which were adopted last week. And then the BDO lease revenue ordinance. We've got tentatively scheduled a discussion to start that on July 2nd. And, it looks like I didn't update that. So the arts grants, so the money would be approved in the budget. The grants themselves get approved separately. The last few years we've done that with the budget. There were some questions and some issues with that, so that's been kicked back a little bit. I think the discussion on that is, I believe July 16th is when that's tentatively scheduled to start talking about the actual grant recipients themselves. So I think that's all I've got for you. Yes. A few slides. It's only 14. That's not that many. It's just no. I thought, yeah, somewhere Bill is very unhappy with me that that's not a 24-point font with no pictures and nothing else. So thanks.
Okay. Any other council business? If not, we are adjourned for 5 minutes. See you in the council chambers. Council chambers.